Hello, welcome to Litigation Fundamentals with Henry Quillian and guests, also known as Quillian's Kernels. Thanks for being here. This is a continuation of our series of litigation tips that can be used on the business side of litigation and actual pursuit of litigation. As we always remind people, we are not providing legal advice to you. We are giving you ideas that you can pursue with your lawyer. If you're not a lawyer, or if you're a lawyer, you can utilize some of these ideas in pursuing your litigation. And just remember, we're in the state of Georgia. Things could be different here than elsewhere. So make sure you read the rules when you have any doubts. Today we have a special guest who is RoseAnn Annesi with Case 360. And she is a trial consultant, trial graphics person, deposition, congealer, etc., all sorts of trial presentations. At our firm, she has worked with me and Natalie Mark, Don Anderson and Catherine Vanek, Leani, Mickey Ross, and Eric Fisher, I think, and Michael Johnson, I believe. And so we've had success with her at trial, and you know, it really enhances the ability to present something to either a judge or a jury if you can mix in both video depositions and other multimedia presentations. Today, as you can see, the topic is don't get a blank page and a big bill, getting what you pay for and need out of court reporters. And RoseAnn worked at court reporting companies for quite a number of years, so she saw that the back office things going on, and she has ideas about what you need to ask for, what format you need to ask it in, what you're paying for, what you can avoid paying for, etc. So we are very thankful to have her here as a guest, and she has waited to the very last minute so she could do this show so she can then go take her daughter to college tonight. So let's welcome RoseAnn.
Thank you very much. As Henry stated, we are going to talk about getting the best bang for your buck using from court reporting. Okay, and some of these are going to be very, very, very basic, but sometimes when we get to the deposition or we're on the phone scheduling, it's not. Court reporting used to be where you made a phone call and you scheduled your deposition, and then you needed to make a phone call to change the time, or you weren't sure what time you had. So now, in today's world, obviously we have two avenues, probably three if we count faxing, but I don't know who uses faxing anymore. There's online, and you can still make your telephone calls. Believe it or not, there's still a lot of phone calls that come in. There are some people that just have to hear a person's voice, and that's okay. But just remember, for online, whether it's the paralegal, the legal assistant, or even the attorney, you can always go online if it's the middle of the night and you can't remember what time your deposition is. That's the benefits of doing it online, okay? You can go online, you can look up the deposition, where it's at. If for some reason you forgot, you wake up in the middle of the night, did I schedule that? All that information is there, but again, you can also make yourself a note to remind yourself to ask your legal assistant or what have you to call in the morning. I think one real important thing about taking depositions that I've noticed not only here or in other firms is that when you take an out-of-town deposition, a lot of times you're here, you're using a firm that you're comfortable with here in Atlanta. People like large firms, some like small firms. The idea of it is who you're comfortable with. Most court reporting firms, attorneys are normally partial to the court reporter, not necessarily the firm they work with. And I'm sure with a lot of the attorneys in the room, you've worked with a lot of different court reporters, and you know which court reporters you enjoy working with, which ones have really performed for you. And that's really, really important because taking a deposition is very important to your case. But getting to the out-of-town stuff, which I found is you don't necessarily and really shouldn't call, if you're taking a depo in California, to find yourself a court reporting firm out there. Your relationship should be built with a court reporting firm that you work with quite frequently that can get you a deposition in California, that can make the phone calls for your conference room, that can get you the best deal out there. You taking that time, what happens is, come time to look at your case and analyze your case, you've got a deposition from this court reporter and you've got one from this court reporter. Everyone uses different formats, different words per line. sends you different file formats, which we'll get into a little further. So if you can just remember that no matter where your deposition is, if you're used to dealing with someone here, just call them and say, I have a deposition in California. Can you schedule it for me? Then what happens is, whether they're a large firm, a medium-sized firm, or even a small firm, for the most part, they're using affiliate court reporters, which means they've built the relationships for you. They have the relationship to say, you know, these are great clients of mine, and they're coming out to California. Can you get them a conference room without fees? In California, can you have lunch served for them? They can work all that out for you as opposed to just having a court reporter on site. And I think that's really, really important in today's day and age when you have to really save time. Why should you go through the trouble? Why should you wait for somebody to come back to you? That's what your relationship should be working towards here in Atlanta, and whoever it is you're using for your court reporting firms. Even the large firms that come here and tell you over and over again they've got 12 offices, 20 offices, 50 offices, 60 offices in the country, they all use affiliates too. All court reporting firms have to rely, because there are towns out there that there are no court reporters. They have to find somebody. Why should you go through that trouble and not know who you're getting? And again, with that said, it's the court reporting firm then that is responsible for your deposition, not you. And I think that that has a lot to say, because if it's not right, and if they were late, and they didn't produce it correctly, the firm in Atlanta would be the ones that would be responsible for going back at them and telling them, we need this, or we didn't get this. And they have built this over the years to come, so why not use what you're paying for, okay? And also, on that note, let's say you have a case coming up, and you've got depositions in Atlanta, California, and I use California for a specific reason, Florida, Texas, all over. You want to get a quote from the firm, okay? You don't just want to call and say, I need to take 8 depos. Let's get a quote, because believe it or not, you never know what they're charging you for inside and out. What are the little fees here? Shipping fees, video fees, paper clips, and that's an exaggeration, of course. But the idea of it is there's a lot of different fees in there. You can also see who's going to give you the best quote. It may not be the firm that you usually go to, but you can use that for yourself to say, you know what, we price this out. And that's our job, to make sure we get the best price for our client. And they're offering this. Is there anything you can do about it? But at least you've gone out there and you've sourced it. And I can tell you that in all my years, California never came in under $4.20. And we quoted a case here for someone in the room, and we were able to get a California depot for $3.90. I mean, that just totally blew me away. I just was sitting there going, $3.90, and I just kept looking at the paper. So you never know what's out there, so it's better off to try and put it out there so you yourself can get better rates for your clients, and I think that that's really important, along with the consistency to make your job easier when you go to look at the depots, okay? And does anybody have any questions? And if I'm talking too much, please stop me. Of course, you all know about your notices of depositions, and we've all seen examples of transcript, and I think I covered, oh, you see, I'm so busy talking, I totally forgot to change my slide. Okay. Local video conferencing, and streaming. Okay, when do these things come in play? Well, of course, we started with video conferencing, and we thought that was the greatest thing in the whole wide world. And then we get it back on audio, and we have all the static going on, all those fun things, and then we added some video into it. But again, if that's all that you can do for where the depot needs to be, that's an option. Just taking a video deposition, I mean, there's a lot to say about it, okay? You have preserved your record. The client, if something should happen to your witness and they're not available for trial or they're not available for mediation, what have you, you can make clips, impeachment clips with it. You have the deposition, you can play it back in court as opposed to reading a deposition. We'll get there a little further. And again, you never know what's going to happen to that witness if you need them or not. And then again, streaming. And I think when it comes to streaming, each and every one of us is very familiar with FaceTime, right? FaceTime, Skype, we bring it, it's live, we use it all the time in our lives. And a long time ago, real time, and FaceTime and all that hit the legal industry. And there is a company out there right now, which some court reporters have gone to, not all of them. It's Live Deposition, and they offer streaming. You can see your depo, and I know this might be hard to see, but you can see the transcript live. It comes into your computer just like a real-time depo. okay? And then also streaming. You can have the exhibits shown on one part of the screen. You can have the witness because they're being videotaped. So if you couldn't make the deposition, or you did want your associate to learn from the depositions, whatever it is, your client can't travel, there's cost constraints here, the client can actually watch the deposition sitting at their laptop. Now, real time and transcript versus video, I don't know about you, but I mean, I've watched a lot of depositions and I've read a lot of depositions. It's kind of hard to read. So you might want to go with the video. Yes, you can use Skype. Yes, you can use FaceTime, I guess, if you really wanted to. I know some of the courts have allowed Skype into the courtroom. Live deposition is really offering the whole package. They're responsible for it. They run the tests for you. They run the tests for the court reporting company. And it's a really inexpensive way to take your deposition and not be there. Yes, sir.
Last time in Quillian's Kernels, which I don't think was recorded at that time, we talked about the inability in federal court depositions to exclude witnesses or other people from being in the deposition, meaning that unless you have very special reasons and a very special order and can convince the judge to do it, you can't sequester other people that would be witnesses or corporate executives, etc., from your deposition, which was actually a little surprising to me when we had the request of a particular party we wanted to keep out of the deposition and we're unable to do it. At the end of the day, the judge granted our motion and then denied our motion. But that allows for, theoretically, a whole room full of people to be watching from afar if you have a streaming deposition, and that did in fact happen in that case where they would have 5 people in the room in California and we'd be taking the depositions in Houston and everybody would be listening in. And sometimes cases are that important to a business that they want to have everybody on board understanding what's being talked about.
And they also allow, to that point of, let's just say your associate or your assistant couldn't go with you, they can email or text you information that you might have forgotten, or if they created the notebooks and you're in a really big deposition and you can't remember where that exhibit is, they can text you and tell you which notebook it is. So the good part of it is you can still have communication with whoever's not there in the deposition. And again, this is not that expensive. And if anybody tells you that it is, it's not. It's very cost effective as opposed to you traveling, or, you know, we've had snowstorms where we've had to reschedule, people couldn't get out, and we would make it a Skype deposition. Yes, sir?
So you're talking about recording it and broadcasting it?
Correct. You would obviously need a videographer.
So what does it cost to do a deposition here in Georgia? What's the page?
For this, well, it doesn't go with
no,
page.
regular.
A regular deposition, a page can run anywhere from, I would say, $375 to $395.
Right.
For
What
depo.
are we talking about when you have to have your videographer there and there's all that set up?
Well, your videographer probably, I mean, again, that's by court reporting firms also have different types of pricing. If you were going to have a video depo, to add the streaming in is only about another $100 or so on top of that. So the streaming part of it is very inexpensive.
But to do the streaming, you have to have
Your videographer, yes. Your videographer is going to probably be, and these are just quotes, you're probably looking about $200 for the first 2 hours on a videographer.
At least.
On the first 2 hours, yes.
The
So it just
streaming is a
depends on-
different camera from the videographer.
No, the streaming, actually, the videographer hooks up into the computers
Okay.
and then streams it out, right.
We've actually seen both.
And then this is not for every single deposition, but this is for one where the person needs to see it and can't, it's an important witness. You know, you're not going to do this on everyone, but just know it's out there. And if you had to take that depo, and it is going to be videotaped, when you add this process into it, compared to the other rates, it's actually pretty inexpensive. Yes?
If you're using the
Yes,
videographer and you are taking the deposition remotely,
correct.
with this streaming technology, how much of the frustrating lag that I'm used to with Skype is there? Or is it pretty much
This one is
clean?
this particular company is pretty much right on it.
That's it.
Right, it's pretty much right on it.
Good.
And Skype, I believe it was last year or the year before, it was used first time in Douglas County. A judge approved it, and it worked out well. A witness could not be there. The judge was pretty happy with it. Again, if you were to use that in court, obviously the judges are starting to really open up to this process because you necessarily can't get your witnesses there. But this particular company, I've done several demos, and if anybody's interested in seeing a real demo from them, I can actually bring them in one day. We can sit in a room like this, and they can actually come in and show you how it works, and you can see the lag time. It's not at all what you're getting on Skype.
It's highly dependent. You have to make sure you're at a place that has good internet.
Yes, and what this company does, to that note, it checks the bandwidth, it checks your internet sites. It doesn't just say, okay, we're going to take a depo tomorrow without checking any of the cables, making sure that we get a feed from it. Okay, so that's really important too, that they're not going to do it if they don't get a bandwidth feed. There are some law firms out there that have security walls, worse than the government, and then you have to move to a different conference room, because, or a different place if you wanted to do this, because if you can't get a feed or an internet, there's no way it can work. Moving on from that, one other thing on video that I forgot to mention was when you do take a video deposition, and this is also another really soft, really cost-conscious decision that you need to make. Most court reporting companies say they're going to take your video deposition, and they're going to provide you with a DVD at the end of it. And you can watch that DVD in your DVD player at home, and you can have a family night, and you can do whatever it is you need to do with it. The reality is, when we get ready for court, we can't do anything with it, okay? It needs to be synced. If it is not synced, you can't create the clips that you're going to need for the courtroom. You want to play it back in its entirety, you're always going to have objections from the other side. And when you play it back in your entirety in court, you always want to take out the ums, the ahas, the goods, the all rights. We all have those habits. We all say, okay, after the witness talks. We all say, so or what. You can take all that out and, believe it or not, cut off 20, 30 minutes of time, dead space out of it. If it's in a DVD format, there's absolutely no way. You have to go through the expense of having it encoded and then synced all over again. And let me tell you something about court reporters in that feature. They're charging anywhere from $50 to $100 per video hour. And we had a case here where we were almost at $1,900 to sync videos. That's a lot of money. So again, when you're picking your court reporting company and you are going to do videos, check. If they're going to charge you for it, they really shouldn't be. That's out there. The court reporting companies, well, we don't charge for this, but we charge for this. Syncing a video is not that expensive and shouldn't be something that you really, in the end, get caught with a $1,900 bill. That's very, very expensive. Yes?
Yeah, I use a proprietary program
Right.
on my Mac, and there's a guy who will sync them for me for about $40 per video.
Yeah. And I think I charge here something like 25 or 30, so if anybody ever needs that. But the idea of it is I charge pretty much, they're charging $50 to $100. I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's an hour.
And
Per hour.
that's per video hour. Now also remember too, a lot of times they say, well, you're not going to be using your you're not sure if you're going to go to trial. So you really only need it synced if you're going to trial. No, that's not the case. You want some clips for mediation. You want some clips to show the other side what you have. This is important. I want it synced. I don't want to come to Friday before trial, and not that that's a procrastination. We're all hoping it settles. So we try and wait to the last minute to get things done. We get that. But that's when they're going in, and then they're charging expedites on top of that. So that's just basic. Yes?
Just another use of clips, summary judgment motions. Judges really, the judges that I've sent them to, really love the briefs on CD with hyperlinks to the video clips.
Exactly, and all of your briefs can be hyperlinked with exhibits and your clips. So again, there's a lot of different uses for it. It's not the end use of trial, and that's kind of my last slide, but the idea of it is when you're making these calls or you're talking to them, it's not necessarily about, yes, they all have pens, they all have mouse pads. Let's see what else they give away. Donuts, pies, ice cream, and that's all great, but really it's the end result, which is really important. And I've worked with court reporters for a very long time in different ones. I know what it's about, but the idea of it is it's more about, give me the product I need. Don't charge me all this money for my videos when I need to be done. I mean, it's really important to have it as an MPEG and have your files in whichever format you're going to use based on who's creating your video clips for you.
And RoseAnn, I don't want to jump
Yes.
ahead because you might already deal with this, but when you call and say, hey, you want to schedule a video deposition, what do you need to tell them at that point to make sure you get everything you need at trial? Because when I was at trial, I didn't even think about this issue, but when you play a video and you have exhibits that you're showing the witness, and the jury can't see those exhibits. And I want to be able to show the jury the exhibits with the video deposition, but I had no clue that you could even ask for that.
Right.
I didn't know it until you told me. So what do you need to do to tell, as a paralegal or as an attorney, to say, hey, I want to set up this video deposition. It's likely going to go to trial, but I want to make sure that my video deposition is awesome so that the jury isn't like crying that they have to watch this boring deposition, you know, and they don't even
Right.
get to see the exhibits that you're talking about.
Well, that's perfect. Natalie? See, I didn't even hear you say that. Thank you. Okay, again, it's what you're asking for. If you're working with firms here in Atlanta and you have a relationship or what have you, it's important on the first deposition that you're taking to ask for what it is you think you're going to need. If I call in and I want a video deposition, I would like everything synchronized. Can you give me the fees for that? Okay, I want them not only synced, they will link your exhibits to your deposition if you have a PDF. They definitely will hyperlink. As far as the video is concerned, you would have to say, also during the case of the deposition, I would like you to show my exhibits while we're talking to the witness. That's another thing that you can add on. Okay, now that's very new in the last 1 or 2 years, and the reason being is somebody like that firm, Live Deposition, is allowing that. They're doing block video where you can have a picture on the exhibit, you can have a picture on your witness, and you can still get your transcript. So again, these are things that we're adding on to that. Also, for depositions that were taken without that, when you work with them and you want to add them into trial, as we did, you can either add them in, and yes, the jury can see that there was an exhibit, and then go to it afterwards if it's a clip, or after the video is played, and if the exhibits did pop up, at that point what you can do is go back and tender your exhibits if that's what you planned on doing. But it's definitely a request that you need to make ahead of time. I'm having a video deposition, I really would like the video taken with my exhibits showing. Yes?
I mean, how does that show up on the screen? I mean, or can you really see the exhibit? Or
Honestly,
is it just taken up space?
Yes and no. Yes, you can see that it's an exhibit, you can see the number on it. Are you going to see the words that you want them to see? Probably not. That's going to have to be coming out of it. You can either stop your video and highlight the exhibit if you were in trial, or play the clip out and then go back to that exhibit and show them the exhibit.
One thing would be if you are lucky enough to have space for 2 screens, that would be fine. Or if you had, like in federal court, possibly put the exhibit, once the judge has allowed the jury to see it, on the little screens, and then have a big screen with the video playing, I guess.
Right. You could have 2 projectors. There are different ways that you can operate it based on what it is you need them to see and how many exhibits you are. If you were going to play a 4-hour depo, you wouldn't want to stop each time to look at that exhibit. You would probably play your depo through, have the exhibits come up as the witness is talking about them, and then at the end, as we did, the judge allowed us to go in and take those exhibits and show them to the jury and to the sections that they were talking about, which that was rare. Yes?
Separate question if we're done with that.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this falls under specific requests or not, but I wanted to ask about confidentiality because I remember we're seeing a law alert recently in the context of the Bill Cosby case.
Right.
Apparently very sensational context there, but apparently there had been agreements as to confidentiality between the parties, but the court reporter company ended up releasing transcripts from some of the depositions. So what needs to be done at the outset to protect
You need
your
to let them
client?
know that.
It's
You need
surprising
to
me
let
you
them know
have
that.
to, but
Yes.
it's not assumed.
It's
that
not,
they're
nothing
going
is
to be
assumed,
confidential.
absolutely. If there's something that needs to be addressed, you definitely need to let them know that. That's when we talk about special requests. Along with that, a special request for an exhibit. Regardless of how small your case is, continuing number exhibits, okay? They'll hate me for this, but you want continuing number exhibits. If you do not have to create an exhibit list, why would we? They're all there, and they're already numbered for you, okay? And if you could get the other side to work with you, especially on big cases, to really decide on one court reporting firm, it would make everyone's life very easy. It also makes it easy for joint exhibits if you were taking this to trial. But again, continuing number exhibits. The exhibit list is ongoing. Every depot, wherever it ends, it starts the next one. You're not going to have too many 1s, too many 1As, 3s, 4s, 5s. It's 1 through 100, 1 through 10. It's one less thing you have to do. It's a chart. There's no charge for them to do continuing number exhibits for you. I think that's important. Okay? Anybody? Yes?
Just one thing.
Sure.
Going back to displaying the exhibits. I've seen this done very well. I've never actually done it, but opposing counsel did this, and it was quite effective. They used a program on their iPad called TrialPad.
Yeah, I have it.
And
Okay.
they had a screen set up next to the witness.
Right.
And they had the witness drawing on the photo and various stuff, and then they would, as the witness was doing that, it was showing up on the screen next to him. They asked the videographer, just zoom in on the screen, please. And they would go through with him drawing incorrectly, in my case, on the photo. And it that way the exhibit completely filled the screen. And then they directed them to go back to pull back and let's get the witness back in.
So that's some of the special requests. If you want that and you are taking the video and you are going to ask them, you're going to say, if the witness writes on a whiteboard, if they're writing, you need to zoom in on the exhibit, okay? It takes it off the witness, goes right into the exhibit, shows the exhibit, and then goes right back to your witness. And with that whiteboard, with the trial pad that she mentioned, all of our trial softwares now, which in all of their latest updates over the last year, have really perfected the fact that when we're in trial, we can actually turn all of our computers and all the screens in the courtroom to whiteboards. And they can actually write on them now. So as if you're familiar with court setups, case map, I believe, I can't think of the name of the brand that they use in the courts where they would allow them to write on their screen, but now our trial software allows them to do it. So if the court doesn't have it, our computers will allow them to do that. Yes?
With respect to this, being able to show the video of the exhibit, such as when it's being highlighted or circled or whatever, it used to be there were orders that had to come out that said, you know, you can take a video deposition, but it must show the person's head, you know, from shoulder up, and it can't divert from the person. You can't show the people on the side and all that. Is there anybody aware of current restrictions on the video going off of the witness and towards the screen? So, for instance, the witness could say, and it was this point on the car that, you know, and then he'll draw a picture of the car and then do a circle or whatever, an X on a circle. But you couldn't have the witness on the screen at the exact same time as the...
I think that's amongst the attorneys, because if attorney wants to cause some issues during the deposition, they can say, no, I don't want you doing that. I don't want this. I don't want this videotaped. We all know that. I don't want this streamed. I don't want your client to see it. Those are just issues that kind of come up with, you could order it knowing that when you get there, there might be some discussion with opposing counsel. But again, that's between the two attorneys in the room. That's not anything that I've heard of that would say, no, we can't take it off of it. We have done split screens because an attorney needed to be videotaped because he was not treating the witness very well. So we've done split screens with that to show the judge how the attorney was behaving. So again, that's going on amongst all of you, what you're discerning.
So on that one, you had two cameras, one pointing towards the witness and one
The
pointing towards the
opposing
attorney?
counsel had two cameras in the room, two videographers, one on the attorney and one on the witness, correct? Yes, and every depo that was taken in that case was done that way, to show the judge how the attorney was behaving towards the witness, correct?
I think those kind of words you're talking about are kind of, they may still be floating around. I haven't run into them, but they're kind of outdated.
Yes, I mean, a lot of times now, because of the way technology is going. Just going back quickly to other special requests, if there's anything coded that you needed on your exhibits. Also, confirmation and additional technology. If you need a medical box, you know, an expert light box, if you need an Elmo, whatever. I mean, yes, people still use Elmos out there. They're in federal court, and there are large cases still going on, and people are still putting their documents on Elmos, so, which is pretty interesting.
What's an Elmo?
Overhead
Way
projector.
before an overhead projector. They call them Elmos, yes, they call them Elmos. And there are even cases where people have called and said, can you please come, I need you to put documents on my Elmo. And I was like, you know, I really would love to do that for you, but I just don't think that would be inappropriate. You can actually put it down, and I'll show you how to work it, but I think that you can obviously handle an Elmo. It's just an overhead projector, but we have it. So those are just things that you don't want to forget to tell the court reporting company. Don't assume that every single conference room that they're in, even if you're in their offices, that this stuff is sitting in each of their rooms. It's not. You know, if you're going to have a videographer, yes, they're going to set up. It's set up. Each deposition is set up for you and what you've requested for it. And I think, yes.
This came to mind. Another thing is you might want to bring a extension cord with a long strip of plugs on it and all that. I've seen so many times when they bring everything and then they realize and they set up and then the plug's on the other end of the wall and there are not enough empty plugs and all that. And then you have this chaos. You know, where are we going to get the electricity for all this stuff?
Yes, electricity, and especially some of the old courthouses or old buildings are issues. Once had a case in North Carolina. I was on a products case. There was 14 attorneys, 4 paralegals, and me, and we had 2 outlets in the courtroom. Guess who got the outlet? I did. So, and we actually ran cords through the whole entire courthouse to plug in everyone's laptops because that's important. Now, a lot of times today, the courtrooms are really well equipped. They've got plenty of outlets. They've got it for Macintosh. They've got it for PCs. They have the different pieces that need to go on. But again, don't hesitate to mention, I'm a Mac user, okay? Make sure they know you're a Mac user. Because if you are taking a real-time depo, which I did go over, you all know what real-time depos are. I do have a software at the end I can show you. Let them know you're a Mac user because they need to be able to accommodate you. Real-time used to be, we used to have to bring all these little cords and wires and everybody needed to be hooked up. And right now it's like a little jump drive goes into your computer and you're all ready for a real-time depo. So it's amazing to watch how that's happened. Don't forget also real-time depos in the courtroom if you are going to trial. And you're a court reporter and you want real time, it helps a lot on certain witnesses if you have to go back and re-question them and you want, you know, you took notes and you're a great note taker, but really your job is to be listening. Ask them for the real time part of it. You can actually put it back in your computer and use it against them, the testimony that was done earlier.
What's the general upcharge for real time?
Real time is usually $1.25 more a page. Now, just remember, now this is another thing the court reporting companies are going to hate me for. When you have to expedite something, you probably really want to go real time because an expedite is usually $10 a page when you expedite a depo, okay? I mean, you can be in that range based on your court reporting companies. You know, you're expediting, they have to turn that around quickly. Real time is $1.25 a page right now, $1.35 a page. You get your rough draft at the end of that night. Why not? And if you need it expedited for the next morning, they'll print it out. You've already have your real time. You pay for your real time. Do you need that document the next day? If you're going to court, it's a different story. But if you need it for the next day, if you have multiple depositions going on and you wanted to see what happened the day before, they'll download it right to your computer and you'll have it. So
I'll give you one example of where I wish we had had real time. I was in a deposition in Louisiana. We were using court reporting that we didn't know, the other side had set it up. My counsel for my co-defendant was here in Atlanta and was asking questions. We get the deposition back, half her questions the transcript shows as unintelligible. They do not have her questions in there, and we are fighting that battle right now. If I had had real time and could have been watching while she was asking the questions, I would have seen that. I could hear her questions fine. Never occurred to me the court reporter would A, not hear it, and B, not speak up.
Right. Right. That's very odd that the court reporter would not speak up. That is horrible. And you don't know when that's going to happen. So you have to sit there and say, okay, well, is this witness versus this? What if this goes wrong? And that's a real bad position to be in. But if you had the real time, you definitely would see it. There's different real time out there too. Some that update immediately. Okay, so most court reporters will be there writing, and you take a break. And during that break, real good reporters go back and fix their work, okay? So that your draft at the end of the day is pretty clean. Make sure when you're ordering real time, you want the real time that updates, okay? Because there are some out there that they don't update. You want to make sure that you have the real time that updates. That's
What does that mean?
It's that when they're updating during a break, and you come back on, and the court reporter goes back
it'll
on,
go back
your computer, if you went back, you would see the changes that were made based on the words that were typed or anything that was updated while she was working. They usually work through lunch. They usually bring their lunch, they work through lunch. They're always working to update it to get it done as quick as possible for you. So you want to make sure that you have that software. And
Well,
also,
that would
now-
seem to be real important because, I mean, what if you loved what was scrolling over the screen, that's what you heard, and then you came back and she had changed, somebody had whispered in her ear and said, I didn't say yes, I said no.
No, she can't do
Something
that.
like- I
She's
know,
not changing
They
that.
can change words, though.
they can, what they're changing is they're
That's what they're supposed to do.
They're
but-
changing their dictionary. So the way they typed a word, Smith, whatever, that's what they're changing. They're changing their dictionary. They can't change any of that. Again, with real time too, we once had an issue where an attorney was told he knew the court reporter and he had her change words. Well, needless to say, I found that court reporter myself because I really, I really enjoyed that attorney, and he called and said, we have a problem and this happened. I'm like, don't you worry, I'll find that audio. And I did, and we proved that that did not happen. That was exactly what was said in the courtroom. So you just want to be prepared. Okay. Some of the other things on days of depositions, and of course I know all of you know this about the setup. Court reporters should always be there early. You should never be ready for court reporting unless something really bad happened on our Atlanta roads. And by then you should have at least heard from them. So it's important when scheduling, they do have the attorney's cell phone numbers because you want them to be able to reach an attorney, and not just the court, not just the conference room of the law firm that they're going to, not just if they're taking your witness and you're defending you just want them to have your numbers. It's really important. You want to hear it from them that they're running late for whatever reason it is. Make sure that the style of the case is correct. You have to exchange your business cards because we all know how important that is. The proper handling of exhibits, delivery requests, if not previously discussed. Again, if you set up your request initially, you can eliminate all of this from the day of the deposition. How am I getting delivery? Yes, I want continuing number. What is the number we're starting with? They usually should sit there if it is a continuing number deposition and say, okay, Mr. Quinlan, we're starting on 30 today, the last two depositions. Are they going to hold your original exhibits because they're going to bring them to all your depositions? Another question you want to decide ahead of time. Here are the depositions. They're then responsible for bringing all the exhibits to each deposition for you if they're holding the originals. Also now, yes?
I have had situations where the attorney on the other side engaged the court reporting company, and everybody used them.
Right.
But they sent different people to the various depositions because of scheduling, and because Sally did it yesterday and she had the exhibits, and Susie's coming today, and they live on two different sides of town, and the exhibits didn't come.
That obviously should not happen. That was poor planning on the court reporting business. What happens is the court reporting, the exhibit should go back to the office, and then the next day the office of that court reporter comes down and takes it. You always want, on big cases, at least 2 court reporters. The reason being is you don't know when an emergency happens. You don't know if something happens in a family or whatever. You don't want just one court reporter on a case like that. You definitely want to become familiar and have them familiar, so they're also switching their dictionaries amongst each other. The first person, these were the words we used, and they send them off so that it makes it easier. Again, just stress that when you're calling. This happened to me, I don't want this to happen again. We would like to know the names of the court reporters that are going to be there, and they should be responsible for getting you your exhibits. Absolutely. And if not, they need to make that up to you.
Yeah, the way they handled it, and they kind of took the offensive, and the attorneys are sitting there kind of fuming, and the court reporter took the offensive of just basically, and instead of, so I just assumed, well, hell, that's the way it's going to happen.
Right. Again, you have large court reporting firms, you have court reporting firms that really value attorneys and that you're their business. So, that's a hard thing to say. I don't know who your relationships are with because you build those relationships. But you have to remember that, You're their client. They have to make you happy. And if they want that attitude, you know, that's what they have to, in the long run, know that you won't be their client anymore. And that there's other places out there. And there are places that will listen. And if they don't, you know, we're not all perfect, but they will make sure that you are taken care of. If something should go wrong, they own up to it, they move on from it, and all's better. And you should always be taken care of if there is an issue that has occurred. The next part of this is, we talked about that, is what you receive, how you received it. Again, now, from what I'm hearing out there, a lot of people are just taking electronic and no more paper. That's a decision that you can make, okay? You can say, I just want an electronic transcript, I don't need the paper, you know, you can print it yourself or what have you. So that's something new. That's happening a lot in New York and California. Attorneys only want electronic copies. So, you know, again, that's up to you. Yes?
You know the sealed original?
Yes.
Is that, how, some people tell me that's sort of no longer a big deal.
The reason that's no longer a big deal is because federal court, you file everything electronically. But, you know, there are courts that don't take things electronically. So if you want to stop that electronic, I was just in a federal case and they had a bunch of sealed depositions and they called the court and said, well, what would you like us to do with them? They said, well, if you want to turn them over, we'll take them, but we're really not taking them anymore. If it's a state court, yes, you still need them. So I would say based on what you need and how you need it, then that's how I would ask for it. If it's a federal case and you know you're going to file electronically, don't ask for your original. You don't need it. You can file it all electronically. And that, of course, will then save more money there, too. So it is based on where the court is, because you still have state court, right? And Superior, I think, are all still not electronic.
And they differ.
And every court is different, every state is different. Yeah, absolutely. So again, what you're receiving, if you want it electronically. The other part of it is a good court reporting company has an amazing online repository, and what that means is it's like your own little file cabinet with your case in it, who's authorized to go in it. Your exhibits are loaded in there, your depositions are loaded in there. You can look at them by case, you can look at them by firm, you can give authorization. Let's say you and opposing counsel have agreed, you're both going to look at the depositions. They can be open to both firms if that's what needs to be, because they're the depos, they're the exhibits. What I want you to remember from that is they're downloadable and they're already OCR'd. You don't have to spend the money to OCR those documents.
What does that mean?
That means that you can search them. They're optical character recognition, okay? A lot of times what happened in the past, we had ASCIIs, we had E-trans. We are finally at the PDF format, okay? And a PDF is searchable, which means you can search them. You're not paying a penny or 2 cents per page to have it searchable, because that's what they charge. So they all come that way. Your exhibits come that way. And it's there. Use it. Download it. If you're going to exchange electronics and you're going to put them on your website, you know, on your system, take them from there. Don't rescan them.
So
Yes.
the exhibits would be searchable also typically?
Sure. Anything they do in PDF is all searchable. Yeah, that's part of it. And if they're not optical character, if they're not OCRing it, that is a red flag right there, because that's kind of like brushing your teeth. That's, you know, you just have to do that to documents today. And just remember, if you are working on PDFs and they are OCR'd and you need to redact, because we all need to redact documents, right? Okay, once we redact that document, you need to re-OCR it. And as long as you're using Adobe Professional or Standard, I believe you can OCR yourself the document after you've redacted it. If you do not OCR it again, whatever you've redacted can still be searched, can still be found. So that's really important on Social Security numbers and bank accounts. That's just something that, if you take anything, that's a really good one. Just always remember to re-OCR that document. You don't want to be caught saying, we found this, when it really shouldn't be, especially on attorney's eyes only or what have you that you're taking out of things. So you're also, now with your transcripts, whether you order a video or not, you're going to be receiving a CD, again with these files on it. That's also going to be on your repository. It's going to have your PDF, it's going to have your exhibits. On your DVDs and DVTs, a DVD is the one we place in our little video player at home when we watch with our kids, and a DVT is what we get synchronized that we can make clips and use during mediations and trials and summary judgments and electronic briefs. We can hyperlink all of the clips. As she mentioned, you can hyperlink all of your exhibits, send it off to the judge, everybody's happy. But when you're opening it up, especially on your videos, a lot of court reporting companies have all these folders: import, media, data, and exhibits. And you go to the exhibit one because you're like, you know what, I just paid for that, my exhibits are there, and they're not there. That is one thing you want there. You want them to make sure those exhibits are on your video discs, okay? Do not let them say, well, we gave them to you, we gave you the transcript. Absolutely not. If they're providing you a disc, your exhibits need to be there. It all should be in one place for you. Any questions? Anybody have anything to say? Anything I may have left out? Anything? All right. Well, you know.
A quick question.
Yes.
When it comes to exhibits.
Yes.
And charges by the court reporter for handling the exhibits, what's appropriate there? Hard copies, PDF per page, because those seem to be prices often that are higher than what our clients allow us to charge for copies.
Well, those are your negotiables with the court reporting companies, okay? Those are the things that you say, send me your price list up front, let me look at this, okay? Why is this the case? Question that. You know, a lot of times, and nothing against the attorneys, but they're like, the attorneys just want this done. No, that's not the case. You need to question it. If you don't question it, they're never going to get an answer from them, okay? And everybody has their own things. Well, I'm not going to charge for this, but I'm going to charge for this. I'm not charging for this, and this one does for this. You have to look at the whole picture and say, you know, a 4-hour rate for a depo is a good way to assume, well, if this person's charging this for 4 hours and you get their rates, we usually use a half a day as a good way to estimate what a deposition should cost and what the exhibits. But again, they may charge you one price for scanning and not printing. So you know what? Why bother having them print your deposition? You can have them printed here, you can download them. They'll all be tagged for you, they'll all be on their repository. As long as the repository, again, is set up correctly. Court reporting firms, because you are such a large firm, and obviously you all use different court reporters, but the idea of it is there should be a firm-wide, if you do use several of the same, that you get better pricing. I mean, there's so many of you that there's a good way to build up the pricing that they give you. But just remember that when you're going out of town, that's the one thing that I've noticed a lot. People think they need to have their offices called. Don't. That's what they get paid for. They get paid to set all that stuff up for you. And you want the consistency for your case, is really what you want. Some people, and another thing to look at is 40 pages per hour. That's a good way to also look at depositions. We say it's about 40 pages an hour that a court reporter can write.
Are there charges that we should say, 5 years ago it was worth the charge, but OCR now should be free?
Yeah.
For example. I mean,
Absolutely.
are there any other things like that?
I would say that. I would also look at the printing, how much it's costing you to print it, your exhibits, you know. The hidden fees are a lot of times in the videos, and, you know, the different cancellations. Somebody may have an appearance fee of $75, but their video's a lot higher, you know, so it's an average rate. It's kind of like a numbers game. You know, you have to sit there and say, but ask for a proposal. You know, ask them to quote you on pricing. And believe me, yes, 4 depositions in one case versus 20 in another is going to get very different pricing. Yes, they want the big case from you. They want the consistency. They want you to know that you're going to keep coming back to them. And again, when you work with the opposing counsel and you have a big case and you have copies and all that going in there, it's a great negotiation tool. But again, if you don't negotiate, you're just getting what they give you. But on that one particular case that we did, we had 3 proposals. I actually, that particular one was pretty funny because I worked for court reporting. They all thought that I was out there getting their prices and going to share with everybody. I'm like, no, I'm really working for an attorney. Just send me the proposals. And one person sent me a proposal and I just called and I said, I would be too embarrassed to send this to my client. It was just embarrassing. It wasn't even worth anything to show. So, but again, you're a big firm. You should be able to go out there and get proposals to give you decent prices for your clients. This is pretty much a blank screen because there's really a lot that you can do with your depositions and your videos, and I think that's important. Linking them to briefs, I mean, judges love that now. Their clerks love that. They think it's great. What we normally do on that, you file your brief on a Friday because most briefs are due on Friday at 11:59 at night or 5 o'clock, but they're never really ready till 4:30 or maybe 4:45. So we usually send the electronic brief a week later that they've arranged with the court, and that's usually what happens is, if they're not ready, then they'll go out a week later. And in one case, we sent one out a week later, and opposing counsel got all upset and hired us to make theirs electronic because the judge thought it was so great. So there's lots of things out there that don't cost as much. Electronic briefs, years ago, were $10,000 and $15,000. They're nothing near that now, nothing. They're just literally linking and putting clips together. So they are very minimal, it's just hourly now, as opposed to saying, well, this many pages was $10,000. And that's why it started here, went down, and it's back up now, because the judges and the clerks are really enjoying that easy benefit of pulling up an exhibit and getting your clips. So.
You can also, just to throw in, because
Yeah.
I've done this a
Right.
lot, I did it years
Right.
ago. You can have the link go to a specific page, not just the transcript, but you can also highlight it. I mean, it's your brief. You can do whatever you want to with it. I have done it before when I knew I was going to be doing a reply brief. I did both of them together. And every once in a while, I've agreed with opposing counsel, and we've done one with all of the briefs. So it saves money when you do it that way.
Yes.
A few years ago, there was some court where you had to accompany what you were filing with CD. Is that gone now? Have things been modernized where you don't have to do that?
Yes, I would tend to think, I mean, I know we were going to federal court last week. They weren't even going to let us bring any type of demonstratives that were going to be kept there. Everything had to be 8.5 by 11. I know this in Jacksonville, that courthouse, you come in with a board, you're leaving with your board. You're leaving at 8.5 by 11s, and they don't want any of this stuff. So more and more things are becoming electronic, and less things that needed to be there. But if there is electronics, and a lot of this particular court, they also took all of our exhibits on a disc for the judge without a notebook for the judge. So that's huge, that they're not looking at the paper anymore either, because they don't have the room in the courthouses to keep all your stuff. So they want everything electronic too. And they're very familiar with the different softwares that we're using. So, and again, you know, your depositions add up to this. There's everything that you can do with your depositions, with your video depositions, even your paper depositions. You can create your clips from them if that's what you still have and that's what your client is having you use. But don't forget, on that video, there's a lot you can do, especially if you ask witnesses the same question and you're going to use it against them. You can just have everybody's answer coming out. You have the question and your answers, just 1, 2, 3 from all the different witnesses. So there's lots of fun things we do in the courtroom with video clips. Us techs really like video.
How would that look? What you just said.
So if you had, you were taking 5 depots, and it was the same question you needed to ask. Was John Smith hit by the red car? And the first person came in and said, no, it was a yellow car. No, it was a green car. No. You can show that there was no consistency.
Yeah, but I mean, how would it show up on the...
On the screen, you would have the different pieces of the video put in.
I mean, would there be 5 slices and
No,
see
it's
the
one.
picture of
You
the
would have
person?
one person. You would have the video come up of the first person with asking the question, and then you would have the answer, and then the next answer, and then the next answer, and then the next answer.
And would their face come up so you
Yeah,
could
you
see
them.
them?
Absolutely, yeah. Or
And it'd be like a little cartoon
Yes.
bubble coming out of their mouth?
absolutely, you can do a cartoon bubble. You can draw little crowns on them. You can make devil ears on the bad witnesses. Let's see what else we can do. Oh, this is a really, really good one. We were in a trial, and the witness, every single, I know we have to go, sorry, I can talk. Every single witness, the witness was asked a question. She said, I don't know, I don't know. Well, in closing arguments, we did an I don't know segment. And it was, you do remember this witness. And I played, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And opposing counsel went crazy. And we had a sidebar during closing arguments. We did it again. Opposing counsel went crazy. Another sidebar. Next time, I added speed to it. It was, I don't know, 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 when I find it. So there's lots of things that you can do. Not that we want to, it's not a joke, but the idea of it is here's a person we're supposed to be relying on, yet every answer she didn't know. So just remember that when you're taking your cases and your witnesses. So if there are no other questions, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you very, very much for that wonderful recitation of all things depositions. And with that, come back next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.